a German aircraft flying above the Red Sea, a silent beam of light, and a flash that ignited a diplomatic firestorm. In July 2025, Germany accused China of targeting one of its military planes with a high-powered laser. There were no shots fired, and definitely no missiles launched. It was just light that was weaponized. The plane was forced to land, and shortly after, Berlin summoned the Chinese ambassador. The summons came with accusations, but Beijing denied everything. But the questions haven't gone away. Was this an accident or a message? Because if lasers are now the weapon of warning, then the world just stepped into a new kind of war zone. In early July 2025, a German military surveillance plane patrolling the Red Sea suddenly aborted its mission, and the reason was that a Chinese warship allegedly targeted it with a military-grade laser. Germany's Ministry of Defense didn't mince words. The laser fired without warning put its crew at serious risk. The aircraft in question was part of the Accuses, a European Union-led operation safeguarding critical shipping lanes from missile attacks by Houthi militants. What should have been a routine reconnaissance sortie turned into an international incident. The laser's flash forced the pilot to divert and land safely in Djibouti, and within hours, Berlin summoned the Chinese ambassador. This wasn't just a minor skirmish. This was an allegation of electronic warfare, a hostile act by the world's second-largest military against a NATO member state. Beijing's response was a flat denial. According to its foreign ministry, the German account was totally inconsistent with the facts. China claimed its vessel was merely performing anti-piracy duties and accused Berlin of misunderstanding its intentions. But behind the denials and diplomatic niceties lies a deeper question. Was this truly a misunderstanding or a warning shot in a larger geopolitical contest over the world's most strategic waterways? And to understand why this single moment matters so much, we need to zoom out, from the skies above the Red Sea to the global chessboard that surrounds it. At first glance, the Red Sea seems like just another stretch of water. But for militaries and global supply chains, it's one of the most strategic corridors on Earth. Roughly 12% of global trade passes through this narrow waterway every year, connecting Europe and Asia via the Suez Canal. Oil, natural gas, food, it all flows through here. And when that flow is disrupted, the entire global economy feels it. That's why in early 2024, the European Union launched Operation Asperdes, a military mission aimed at protecting civilian ships from missile and drone attacks by Yemen's Houthi rebels. Germany, France, Italy, and others have deployed naval assets. But Germany's presence isn't about defending trade. It's also about asserting a new military posture, a shift from decades of caution to what Berlin now calls Zeitenwende, a turning point in national security strategy. That includes deeper military engagements in Africa and the Indo-Pacific. China, meanwhile, has maintained a steady naval presence in the region since 2008, officially under the banner of anti-piracy missions. But since opening its first overseas base in Djibouti in 2017, just 12 kilometers from the US and French bases, China's footprint has grown. Its warships regularly patrol the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea, and its presence is officially justified as maritime escort operations. But Western analysts increasingly view China's deployment as a projection of power, not just protection. So when a Chinese warship allegedly illuminated a German surveillance aircraft without warning during a routine mission, it wasn't just a close call. It was a collision of global interests, where two militaries, both thousands of kilometers from home, were suddenly staring each other down in international airspace. And this wasn't the first time a Chinese warship had allegedly used lasers on a foreign aircraft. In fact, a pattern was already emerging, and it pointed to something far more calculated. Germany's accusations may have raised eyebrows across Europe, but this wasn't the first time the Chinese military was linked to a laser incident. In 2020, the U.S. Pacific Fleet accused a Chinese warship of targeting a U.S. Navy P-8A Poseidon surveillance plane with a high-powered laser. The aircraft was flying above international waters west of Guam. Washington called the act unsafe and unprofessional. And this wasn't isolated. Over the past decade, U.S. military pilots have reported laser interference near Djibouti, where both the U.S. and China maintain major military bases just kilometers apart. In 2018, the Pentagon said several American pilots suffered temporary eye injuries from suspected laser activity near China's base. Once again, Beijing denied any involvement. Lasers in military use aren't just science fiction anymore. Today's directed energy weapons, DEWs, range from dazzling lasers meant to blind or disorient sensors to more advanced systems capable of damaging electronics and airframes at range. Germany hasn't said whether its aircraft suffered damage or if its crew was injured, but military analysts warn even a non-destructive laser illumination is often the opening move in a confrontation where no bullets are fired. And that brings us to a deeper question. Why? Why would a Chinese destroyer take aim at a German surveillance plane? Without provocation? During an EU peacekeeping mission? To answer that, we have to look at the hidden tensions bubbling beneath the surface, in Europe, in Beijing, and along the world's most contested sea lanes. The incident might look like a tactical anomaly, a momentary lapse in naval discipline, but the context tells a more calculated story. The Red Sea isn't just a hot zone for piracy or Houthi missile launches. It's one of the world's most vital shipping arteries, a narrow, contested corridor connecting the Mediterranean to the Indian Ocean, and that makes it a geopolitical chessboard. Germany's aircraft wasn't flying solo. It was part of Accuses, a European Union naval mission launched in early 2024 to defend international shipping lanes in the Red Sea from escalating Houthi drone and missile attacks. The operation included warships, surveillance drones, and aircraft from multiple EU nations. Its presence sends a clear message. Europe is reclaiming maritime agency. Now add China. Since 2017, China has operated a permanent military base in Djibouti, its first ever overseas garrison. The base lies just miles from the same airspace Germany's plane was flying through, and China's PLA Navy regularly deploys warships to the Gulf of Aden as part of what it calls escort operations. But Beijing's presence here isn't just about pirates. It's about influence, presence, projection. As Europe, the US, and others tighten scrutiny on Chinese tech investments, critical infrastructure, and spy activity, Beijing may be signaling that it, too, can apply pressure. Subtly, optically, with lasers instead of missiles. The laser incident wasn't a stray flash in contested airspace. It was a signal. And if history's any guide, that signal won't be the last. Because beneath the surface of global trade routes and diplomatic protocols, something far more dangerous is emerging. Within hours of the laser incident becoming public, Germany's diplomatic engine roared to life. Berlin summoned China's ambassador. Strong language followed. On the social media platform X, Germany's foreign minister posted, "Putting German personnel at risk and disrupting operations is entirely unacceptable." Berlin didn't just issue a statement, it escalated, summoning the ambassador, calling the act entirely unacceptable. Every move, deliberate. The EU didn't stay silent either. Brussels summoned China's envoy to the bloc. The EU's foreign affairs spokesman called the incident dangerous and unacceptable, echoing Berlin's assessment. The message was unified. The safety of European assets operating in international waters was not negotiable. This rare alignment underscored the stakes, because U.S. aircraft have previously reported laser incidents involving Chinese ships in the Pacific, notably a 2020 case over the Philippine Sea. Such confrontations with NATO-aligned European states are far less common. And this time, it's not just a bilateral spat. It's an incident that risks drawing the EU deeper into the arena of Indo-Pacific tensions, a region that has, until now, been more Washington's chessboard than Brussels. Beijing, for its part, denied the entire accusation. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said Germany's claims were totally inconsistent with the facts known by the Chinese side. They framed the PLA Navy's presence as part of regular anti-piracy duties, not aggression. But denials don't erase impact. With both sides doubling down, the fallout is now diplomatic, military, and strategic. But what does this mean in the grander theater? Is it a one-off provocation, or just the opening shot of a more shadowed campaign? Laser weapons may sound like something from a Star Wars storyboard, but they are no longer science fiction. In today's military theater, they are the next evolution in electronic warfare. What Germany described in the Red Sea is known as a dazzler, or low-powered laser, designed not to destroy, but to disrupt. These are tactical lasers, often mounted on ships or aircraft, that emit intense beams of light meant to blind, confuse, or damage enemy optics, including the sensors on reconnaissance planes. And the threat is real. In 2018, U.S. officials accused Chinese forces at their Djibouti base of aiming lasers at American pilots, with reports of eye injuries and aborted missions. A similar accusation surfaced again in 2020, when a Chinese destroyer allegedly illuminated a U.S. P-8A Poseidon with a laser near Guam. China denied both, but the pattern is hard to ignore. In the era of hypersonic missiles and drone swarms, lasers offer something more subtle, silent interference. They don't leave shrapnel or smoke trails, just momentary blindness or corrupted data. But for surveillance aircraft like Germany's multi-sensor platform, that's enough to end a mission and trigger a diplomatic firestorm. And the tech is advancing fast. Both the US and China are investing billions in more powerful hard-kill laser systems, capable of disabling drones, aircraft, and even satellites. This isn't just about dazzle, it's about dominance. With lasers now deployed on active missions, the line between harassment and hostile acts gets blurrier. And the question becomes, if light is now a weapon, who controls where it points? What happened between China and Germany in July 2025 may not have been a deliberate act of aggression, but in this crowded maritime theater, where submarines, drones, and lasers all share the sky, even one misstep can escalate from flare-up to full-blown crisis. This wasn't just a flicker over the Red Sea. It was a signal, a warning shot, not in gunfire, but in photons. The alleged laser incident involving Germany's aircraft and a Chinese warship marked something deeper, a shift in how military power is projected, tested, and challenged. For years, China has been steadily expanding its global military footprint. The base in Djibouti is no longer just about anti-piracy. It's about surveillance, force projection, and permanent presence. And now, Beijing is not just watching the world. It's being watched back and reacting. Germany's reaction was swift, summoning the Chinese ambassador, halting the mission flight, restarting surveillance only after precautionary checks. And Germany wasn't alone. The EU issued a formal rebuke. These weren't just diplomatic routines. There were warnings of red lines being crossed. The larger picture is that the world is entering a new phase of great power friction. It is no longer just about land grabs and trade disputes. It's about contested airspace, ambiguous signals, and electronic warfare techniques that don't leave craters, but still can bring down planes. China has repeatedly denied using lasers against US and now German aircraft. But these repeated incidents, including those over Guam in 2020 and now the Red Sea, suggest a pattern, a low-intensity test of boundaries, conducted under the radar of full-scale war. And the West? It's being forced to adapt, not just by building better jets or stronger alliances, but by acknowledging that the battlefield now includes light, data, and perception. There was a time when rules of war were written in treaties, and acts of aggression carried names, invasions, bombings, and sanctions. But in 2025, a warship pointing a laser at a surveillance plane doesn't trigger alarms or headlines the way missiles do, yet the consequences may be just as destabilizing. The laser that forced a German aircraft to abandon its mission did not cause physical damage, but it sent a message, one of intimidation, assertion, and escalation of ambiguity. And this is precisely what makes it dangerous. Today's battles aren't always fought to win. Sometimes they're fought to test resolve, to see how close one can approach the red line without crossing it. This is the doctrine of gray zone warfare, where plausibility, deniability, and confusion are the tools of choice. In that gray zone, lasers become more than just tools of illumination. They become statements. They say, "We see you, we can reach you, and we're not afraid to make you blink first." Germany's decision to resume its Red Sea operations shows resilience, but it also reveals the tightrope that democracies now walk, balancing deterrence without provocation, accountability without escalation. In a world where warfare evolves faster than law, and signals speak louder than speeches, the real battleground may no longer be territory. It's perception, presence, and the power to disrupt without declaring war. This wasn't just a hostile beam. It was a warning about the shape of power in the 21st century, and it won't be the last. In an age where wars aren't always declared, and battles aren't always fought with bullets, the glow of a laser in the Red Sea may speak louder than 1,000 press releases. This was a signal pulsing through murky waters, testing resolve, probing response. And though it left no crater, it burned through the assumptions of where and how the next confrontation might unfold. Germany responded not with missiles, but with presence. It returned to the skies, and in doing so, reminded the world resilience isn't just about force. It's about continuing the mission in full view of provocation. The laser may have faded, but the warning remains. In the shadows of the world's most vital trade routes, silence isn't peace, and the next move may not come with sound, just light.